Alright guys, it's another rant. It's another nostalgic rant here. Vicarious Alex, the Fortunate Son here, and we are going to talk about the Labyrinth, which you can still hear in the background.
Probably gonna get sued for this.
Yeah, like we'll have to make a couple of videos just in case this one doesn't get up there. So this movie is a great, amazing movie. Holds up well, right?
Yeah, really well.
Holds up really well. There's just a couple of like weird owl scenes and some other like weird, goofy, trying out CGI, but it's not quite there.
It adds to the appeal.
Yeah, it's like it's a product of its time, and
That time was 1986.
and there were certain things happening at that time, like the invention or like the viability of using CGI. So it's cool.
What they made do with what they have.
Dude, and those puppets, the puppetry in this movie is amazing. And you really have to watch it like several times to start to see like some kind of slack in it, I think. Like there's some weird googly eyes used in some scenes, but I've watched it so many times I've never looked at it so detailed. Like what am I gonna talk about? What do you say? Do you have any opinion on like just the puppetry and?
I mean, I think the puppetry's great. I mean, and we're just watching the credits, and like there was like 7 puppeteers just for the junk lady. So huge cast. You know, just people working as hard as they can to make these weird alternate universes in the 80s.
Yeah, right? Like the 80s was a time for this kind of thought process.
And this was like a niche. Like I feel like, you know, obviously you're not going to see a movie like this now. Because I feel like it was like a niche when, like, back in the 80s when, you know, before the advent of technology and people were, like, still reading books and stuff. And they're like, oh, maybe I can make a movie that takes me into this fantastical world. Now it's like no one builds sets anymore. It's just all CGI. And I'd rather see something tangible, such as The Labyrinth.
Yeah, I really want to watch Face Off. Like, I haven't actually seen a lot of those episodes of Face Off. And, like, it's something that I think I could binge watch. Watching people make like the face-off one, and then there's a Jim Henson's puppet one where they try to get into the Jim Henson Club, and they make puppets like once a week, and they're making these huge puppets and stuff. That is really cool. I mean, and puppets are still being used. It's just that we get flooded with so many fucking movies. I mean, this movie must have had a giant budget to look the way it did.
Well, I mean, they were just coming off of Star Wars, like all of it.
Right.
And, you know.
It's huge, it's awesome. So today I was told that Jareth, fan theory is that Jareth is actually a crazy person who abducts Sarahs out of different dimensions who have terrible brothers.
Also, wicked funny seeing, you know, as the credits are rolling, like, since this was out before CDs were out. So it's like, if you want the soundtrack, you can get it on record or cassette. Your choice.
They got all the big labels.
Yep.
And that being able to see this movie in the light that that this just happens over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
That the Labyrinth is this place that is like just Jareth's. Like he is a sorcerer who lives outside of time and space. Really got me to think about a lot of different things, like what's going on with the fucking door knockers when no one's there, and like the things that are in the basement that say you're going the wrong way. Did they just sit and chat for thousands of years? Like the Dog Knight talks about how that bridge has held up for 1,000 years. Like, has he been watching that bridge for 1,000 years?
Yeah. I mean, to an extent, I feel like Jareth is like a master of reality, so he can just like will things to happen with the little crystal balls. Obviously, they're you know, he has an endless supply of them, or they're boomeranging back to him, and he'll just be like, crystal ball, yeah, there's this weird thing coming down the tunnel. So, who knows what he's doing? Maybe it's Jareth, man. Who knows what's going on in that head?
Exactly. He's like a god. He's literally a god. And we got to see how his eternal life is bringing him into this state of madness. And like hanging around that the goblins that he's the king of are all abducted children that were he turned into goblins because Sarah didn't want to spend eternity being like his slave.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he does. He kills a bunch of Sarahs, takes a bunch of babies. Sometimes a Sarah gets out. We saw one where the Sarah gets out, slipped out.
And he's gonna spend a little time as an owl, do some soul searching, do some flying, and you know, as his minions are all partying in Jennifer Connelly's bedroom.
I think that's the key here, is that like the minions just never go away. He makes things that sit there and are his, and he just plays with them when he wants to, and when he doesn't, they're left to their own devices.
Yeah.
And like right now he's in this brooding mode, so they're like, hey, if he's like they're hey, Sarah, if you ever need us, we're totally available for the foreseeable future. Jareth's an owl right now, and that could take like 100 years.
Right.
To sort out.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like there is to some extent, a little bit of mind control going on too, seeing as, you know, every genre of goblin was in her room partying. Even the ones that were trying to kill her previously.
I think it's like Jareth just gives each of them a role, and they just do it until it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really care. Like, it's like not like
they're just trying not to get killed by Jareth.
I think they're just, trying not to become door knockers. Like in the middle of the fucking forest. Like, Jareth could be like, well, you could be a goblin and have some autonomy and like to eat stuff and like hit people in the face and whatever, or you could be the door knocker who has to hold the knocker in his mouth forever. Like, that guy must have really pissed him off. Like 10,000 years ago, he has a story where he was just like, I farted in front of Jareth while he was eating a bacon sandwich, and Jareth was just like, you door knocker, and then somebody stood up for him, and that was the other door knocker and the thing in his ears. Or the other door knocker was just walking by and he's like, well, we need 2 door knockers, so what's your name? Charles? Charles, you're a door knocker. That's why they don't like each other. We don't know.
They hate each other.
They hate each other because, like, they have, like, this unsolvable, like, they're door knockers now. They're never not going to be door knockers in Jareth's eyes, unless they do something really good somehow.
No, they're always going to be door knockers.
Yeah, they just... One gets to sit there muttering, and the other one gets to just, like, not hear him and yell at the other one. It's just this life that they have to lead. Or the guards, the 4 guards that guard those random-ass doors. Like, they don't even know...
What are those?
Well, what are they, and what do they do? Alright, well, I want to make a follow-up standalone video where we compare Jareth with Rick Sanchez. I think that's going to be really, like, a lot of comparisons. Do you feel like up for that?
Yeah.
Alright, well, follow-up episode where we're going to talk about this more in depth because it's something really interesting. I'll let David talk more, too.
Is that, like, he's the Goblin King, and he had a Goblin Queen named Sarah who died, and then he has just been, like, fixated on finding people that are named Sarah. So he's, like, found, like, different, like, he can't, like, he's basically, like, immortal. So, like, he, like, comes to Earth, or, like, is on Earth, whatever dimension he's from, and is like, okay, you're gonna be my Sarah for the moment, until, like, you know, in your mind, until you die. And then, something about, like, Sarah and Toby, and they're, like, there's always a Toby as well. And they're like, all the goblins are just like basically like babies in stasis, they're like stasis babies, where they like once you introduce them to the goblin world and like they can't grow up and they just become these like weird old looking babies.
And you will be free.
So like he's the Goblin King because he just keeps on stealing babies.
Girl knew that the king of the goblins
Wow.
asked for every
So the Goblin King is
turn
stealing.
it into a goblin.
So
And so the girl
Okay.
suffered in silence until one night
I'll pull it up
she died from a day
because
of
I feel like I'm not getting it right.
hurt by the harsh words of her stepmother, and she could no longer stand it. All right.
so is the Goblin King playing with Sarah to get her to say those words?
No, I must.
Is it like magic, where like magic is like based on
I wish.
wordplay?
I wish.
Is she going to say it? Say what? You shut up. Listen, she's going to say the word.
I can bear it no longer.
Just as like your own concept, like did he introduce all that stuff into her life to make her susceptible to his stuff, to his influence? Huh?
Excellent rubbish. It doesn't even start with I wish.
Oh, Toby,
Okay.
stop it.
Once upon a time, long ago, there was a sorcerer named Jareth. He fell in love with a human girl named Sarah, and she with him. And Sarah's father and stepmother would not allow them to marry, for then they would lose the servant and nanny to their beloved new baby. In a fit of rage, Jareth kidnapped the infant and spirited it away to the fairy realm. In the other world, Jareth turned the spoiled baby into a goblin in retribution. Jareth also created a beautiful palace for Sarah, where she'd be treated like the queen she was. Sadly, time moved differently in the fairy world than in the mortal one. By the time Jareth believed his new realm worthy of love, Sarah was long since dead. Overcome by grief, Jareth descended into madness. Grief gave way to denial. Sarah could not be dead, but was in fact being hidden by her wicked stepmother. He must rescue her. A common name, it doesn't take Jareth long to find another dark-haired Sarah over and over. Ones with unfair stepmother and unwanted younger sibling, unable to reason, Jareth kidnaps the baby and the cycle repeats. Only this time the Sarahs follow. Some of the Sarahs complete their quest and win back the baby siblings. Some of them die in the attempt. Completely unhinged, Jareth turns children not recovered in time into goblins to join the ranks of his Sarah's little brother, eventually becoming their god and king. Only then does he build the Labyrinth. He cannot fathom why his Sarah keeps choosing the spoiled baby over his undying love, but if can only keep her with tricks, so be it. As the Sarahs solve the Labyrinth faster and faster, new distractions are added. The junkyard of endless treasure, the bog of eternal stench. If his Sarah is determined to stay only long enough to regain the child, Jareth will delay her as long as possible in the hopes one day she'll choose to stay. But how does the story of Jareth become so garbled in the mortal world? At least one lucky Sarah must have escaped, but not with the whole story, and over time, her or their stories were turned into the fairy tale of the most recent Sarah obsesses over the situation. This is why when the most recent Sarah introduces herself to Hoggle, his response is the cryptic, "That's what I thought." Because, of course, she's Sarah, they're all Sarah.
Jeez. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
It makes the movie make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't seem
Not
like he's
CGI, bitch. I'm real. I'm real. I'm real.
Those aren't her shoes. She's not. Those were stand-in feet.
How much glitter do you think they had to use?
Oh my god.
Goblin King.
Did you know that when he does all those tricks with the contact doubling on somebody else?
I know.
Oh my god, I learned that this year. I was devastated.
You didn't.
Alright, I'm gonna